There's a great article here via Zero Hedge. Originally came from Mint Press News. And what this does is this ties together the connections with Jeffrey Epstein and with Israeli intelligence companies. I've told you from over and over, I mention it almost on a daily basis, how the NSA, how DARPA, how the CIA are funding technology companies that they use as partners to take away your liberty and to spy on you. And it's not just American intelligence, it's American intelligence and the NSA also working with Israeli tech companies. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you how the CIA and the Mossad and the Epstein network are exploiting mass shootings to create an Orwellian nightmare. All of this stuff is tied together with that HARPA program that Ivanka Trump is trying to cram down our throats in the Trump White House. We'll be right back. Stay with us. So what do pedophiles, spy networks, mass surveillance of citizens, and gun control have in common? Everything. Everything. See, it's not just the big government, big tech, big brotherhood that's in the United States. And we've seen this, I've talked about this many times, NSA, CIA with their In-Q-Tel venture capital firms, and that's not the only way that they're funding these companies, of course. DARPA, things funded like Palantir, Microsoft, and the grants that they're getting right now from DARPA to create NewsGuard, to create Election Guard, to openly control what you see, hear, and say, and to count the votes with Election Guard. No, it's also Israeli intelligence. And as we look at this Epstein situation and the pedophile networks, you can see the connections between U.S. intelligence agencies and Israeli intelligence agencies, how they are coming together for mass surveillance of the populations, and also how this is going to be used in the HARPA gun control that is being pushed by Ivanka Trump in the White House. As Zero Hedge's story from Mint Press News points out, a little-known Israeli tech company has begun to receive increased publicity, but for all the wrong reasons. This is a company called Carbine 9/11. And they've received substantial funding from Jeffrey Epstein. You know, we just had, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in just a moment, we had the revelations in the last couple of days over the weekend, how Jeffrey Epstein was funding the MIT media labs. And of course, you know, amongst their other projects that they have at the media labs is the idea that they can you can control devices with your mind. In other words, if you're going to control devices with your mind, that means that these devices are going to have to read your mind, right? Nothing to see here. Just move along. Of course, the Jeffrey Epstein connection there has caused a lot of people to lose their jobs, caused a bit of a stink in academia for MIT and their labs, and fallout for other companies. Not so much for Microsoft, however. Bill Gates and others giving money through Jeffrey Epstein and other relationships. We'll get into that in a moment. But let's take a look at Carbine 9/11 that is also related to Jeffrey Epstein and to his close associate, former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and to Silicon Valley venture capitalists and prominent Trump backer Peter Thiel. Carbine 9/11, or we can just call it throughout the rest of this Carbine, develops call handling and identification capabilities for emergency response services in countries around the world, calling 911, right? It specifically markets its product as a way of mitigating mass shootings in the United States without having to change existing U.S. gun laws. So keep that in mind. This is part of their marketing plea. Yeah, we're going to have this special program that's a technical program that's going to help us to respond very quickly and to shut down these mass shootings. But there's more to it than that. As Mint Press points out, Carbine is no ordinary tech company. It is deeply connected to the elite Israeli military intelligence division known as Unit 8200, whose alumni often go to create tech companies like Carbine. These companies' products are built in such a way that they can easily be used to illegally surveil the governments, the institutions, and the civilians that use them. A troubling fact, given that Unit 8200's documented prowess in surveillance as a means of obtaining blackmail. Blackmail. What was Epstein involved in? Yeah, okay. and Israel's history of using tech companies to aggressively spy on the U.S. government. Another funder of Carbine, Peter Thiel, has his own company that, like Carbine, is set to profit from the Trump administration's proposed high-tech solutions. Palantir, that I've talked about many, many times. He is a backer of Palantir, along with one of his former partners there at PayPal, Alex Karp. Thiel, following Trump's election, asked tech companies to, quote, detect mass shooters before they strike, unquote. Thiel's company, Palantir, focuses on pre-crime software. Again, Palantir consciously referring to the Lord of the Rings. They use that as a metaphor throughout the company. And Palantir in the Lord of the Rings was the crystal ball that was originally used in the story by kings to communicate at distances with each other. But then it was taken over by the dark side, and they were able to use that crystal ball to not only monitor the conversations, but to also peer deep inside the mind and the soul of anybody who used it, if you remember the story, right? Interesting that they would pick that as a metaphor for their company, a metaphor for a company that is involved in data mining for the purpose of anticipatory intelligence, or pre-crime, if you will. And again, that has been, as I point out, almost on a daily basis, geospatial intelligence, the fastest growing part of the military-industrial complex, activity-based intelligence, human domain analytics, anticipatory intelligence, all that together. And so Palantir is one of the most connected, most advanced companies here in the United States. And they're working with this intelligence-based spinoff out of Israeli intelligence, Carbine. Whatever technological solution is adopted by the Trump administration, they say, is set to use a controversial database first developed as part of a secretive U.S. government program that involved notorious Iran-Contra figures like Oliver North. Yeah, these people, Iran-Contra, that was just the tip of the iceberg. You know, illegally selling parts to Iran, our great enemy, right? Illegally selling parts secretly to Iran so they could get money to secretly fund a secret war wasn't enough, so they also started a crack cocaine epidemic. There you go. There's the war on terror and the war on drugs, all together under Oliver North. That great defender, by the way, of the Second Amendment. They put him in the NRA. Why do you think they did that? Okay. Anyway, it involved Oliver North as a means, this is a database that involved Oliver North as a means of tracking and flagging potential American dissidents for increased surveillance and for detention in the event of a vaguely defined national emergency. Remember the 2012 NDAA, the Defense Authorization Act, National Defense Authorization Act, where they said, well, we can, if we determine, the military can grab you and hold you and even transport you to another country to be interrogated if we wish. And we don't really care about the Bill of Rights because we got to get that defense bill passed and funded. Defense is all we're about. We got to be about, everything's about national security, right? Except when it comes to Hillary Clinton's emails. Nevertheless, this database that was erected there as a precursor to surveillance and detention of political dissidents, they put into law with the NDAA 2012. That database was called Main Core, created with the involvement of Israeli intelligence, and Israel remained involved years after it was developed. It was also used by at least one former CIA official on President Reagan's National Security Council to blackmail members of Congress, congressional staffers, and journalists, among others, reports Mint Press. Given recent reports on the Trump administration's plan to create a new government agency that would be HARPA, modeled after DARPA, sold by these people who are all allied with the Obama administration, to flag people who might be a future danger so they can come and take your guns and take you away. It uses advanced technology to identify neurobehavioral signs of someone who is headed toward a violent, explosive act. These are all phrases taken from that document of HARPA. Using data collected by consumer electronic devices, the picture painted by the technology currently being promoted and implemented under the guise of keeping Americans safe from shootings, right? Prior to Jeffrey Epstein's arrest in July, Carbine had received high praise from U.S. and Israeli media, even Fox News hailing the company's services as an answer to the U.S.'s aging 911 services. As a matter of fact, the NSA and Unit 8200, which is behind the spinoff of funding Carbine, they've collaborated in a lot of projects, most famously on the Stuxnet virus that they injected into Iran. And Catherine Herridge, who was the Fox intelligence reporter, I actually saw her say, we've got to have control of the internet by the government because, Stuxnet is a good example. And they were the ones who created that. I'll repeat this over and over again. What we are seeing with the internet, with social media, with the censorship that's rolling out, with the plans to do activity-based intelligence, anticipatory intelligence, and so forth, all of this is being encouraged, funded by the NSA, by intelligence organizations, DARPA, and so forth. And the same thing is happening with Israel. And the Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence agencies and British intelligence are all working together to do this. It is a global conspiracy to control the populations across several different countries. And so as we see, I've been reporting on this, one individual publishing on narrative.org said, we have 2 independent sources confirming that Jeffrey Epstein worked for Israeli military intelligence. He bragged to a New York Times reporter last year in a conversation. The New York Times reporter was James Stewart. He bragged that he had damaging information on prominent figures in Silicon Valley, big tech companies. He told Stewart these top figures in American tech industry were, quote, hedonistic and regular users of recreational drugs. He also told Stewart, Epstein did, that he had witnessed prominent tech figures taking drugs and arranging for sex, and he claimed to know details about their supposed sexual proclivities. The whole thing's a blackmail operation. But, that's for the big guys, where you get the personal attention of Jeffrey Epstein and the personal honey traps. For everybody else, they have a plan that they're rolling out through these tech companies. Again, Unit 8200, essentially the Israeli equivalent of the NSA, working with Microsoft and others. Microsoft is also working with DARPA to control our news, to guard the news, to say that you can't read anything from this particular news organization, like InfoWars, but you can trust everything that you hear from Fox News or from CNN. They're okay. They're all right. They've got the check mark from Microsoft and DARPA. So you can listen and trust them. You can't trust us. And so Unit 8200, again, a development, Carbine or Carbine is a spinoff of that. And in the guise of saying, we're going to keep you safe. We're going to help you to shut down active shooter situations. Again, Palantir also here in the United States and Peter Thiel. They're going to shut that down very quickly. In order to do that, they have to be able to collect all kinds of information on you all the time through your phone without any kind of a search warrant. What a perfect guise. And now these 2 organizations are coming together and supporting HARPA through the Trump administration. So when we look at where this is going and we look at the fallout there at MIT, again, if you're looking at pedophiles who want to get blackmail on people, of course they're going to do it through spies. They're going to do it through the technology that spies on all of us as well. And then they're going to use that for control. And if they can't, if we're in a position where we haven't done anything wrong other than own a gun, they will still use that to control the population. They'll use it for gun control. MIT just came out recently over the weekend. It was announced that they secretly took $1.7 million in donations from Epstein. They admitted that they took $900,000 from Epstein that they previously had not disclosed. And then the MIT president, listen to this, the MIT president apologized to Epstein's victims and said that another $800,000 went to either the MIT Media Lab or to Professor Seth Lloyd. He's not really sure. Not really sure. Can you imagine this? We look at how upset everybody is about these actors and actresses who bribe elite schools like Harvard to get their kids into school. That's not really anything new. I mean, what's new about that was that they paid the wrong person. If they had paid Harvard officially, then they would have done what rich parents have always done. You pay off somebody and you get your kid admitted into the school. But they paid money to a third-party individual who kept it and then, put them in there. But everybody just wants to hang these people from the highest tree. And yet nobody's really paying attention to what's going on here at MIT. They don't even know if the lab got it or the professor got it. And they don't really care, right? Brown University official has been suspended amid the Epstein gift probe that is coming out of the MIT Media Lab. Brown University has placed a fundraising director on administrative leave. You see that this is extended now even to another company outside of MIT, Pure Tech. Their chairman had to resign because he'd previously been affiliated with MIT Media Lab and covering up the money that was coming from Jeffrey Epstein. As the whistleblower said, we knew this guy was not a valid donor. They'd taken him off of the list because he was a known sex offender. This was donations made after he'd been convicted and let off down there in Palm Beach. And yet, as she flagged this, she said she went along with it, because there was so much pressure from everybody. She said, wait, we can't do this. And they said, well, we'll put him in as an anonymous donor. You still can't do that. Well, they don't have to know. And they don't have to know if it's a small amount of money. And she said it became such a common recurring thing because they're structuring these donations, right, doing a little bit at a time, that they started referring to Epstein as Voldemort. That's the way they referred to him. He who shall not be named, they called Voldemort because they didn't want to use Epstein. And so, you have Fast Company now even asking the question, will Netflix pull its Bill Gates docuseries after the latest news about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein? Because it's not just the $1.7 million that was given to MIT directly. There was also money that Epstein bundled and brought to MIT for Bill Gates and another investor, Leon Black. $2 million from Bill Gates, $5.5 million from Black. And, of course, this all happened after 5 years after Epstein's conviction of a minor thing. They took it down, but he was they let him off the pedophile stuff. But still, it's after that conviction. Gates' name, of course, also appears on the flight logs for the Lolita Express, and he's giving millions of dollars that is being bundled through Jeffrey Epstein. And so the question is, on September the 20th, Netflix is set to release a 3-part documentary on Bill Gates. They call it Inside Bill's Brain. No, Bill Gates is the one who wants to get inside your brain, folks. Look at this whole Epstein network. All these people are vanishing. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Well, forget about Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Ghislaine Maxwell, should say. Rush Limbaugh. I have people keep sending me this article from Rush Limbaugh saying that maybe blackmail is behind multiple Republicans not running for office again. You think? We got the black book from Jeffrey Epstein, and you think blackmail might be something that would happen to people in Washington? Are you serious? Like I said before, J. Edgar Hoover was blackmailing people left and right. You had Harry Truman say that. You had Richard Nixon say that. And so people keep sending this to me. I didn't really think it was news, except a lot of people think that it is news. So let's talk a little bit about Rush Limbaugh's idea that people are afraid that there's dirt on them that was scooped up by the CIA or the NSA or Israeli intelligence or anybody, right? There's a bunch of Republicans, he said, that just can't stand Trump is what they're telling you. That's not what it is. He said, that's just what they want you to think. He says, I can't prove this, but he says he thinks that somebody might be getting blackmailed. Well, let's think about this because, Rush Limbaugh knows something about that. He had a long history with Dennis Hastert. Oh, that's interesting. You go back to when things were melting down in October 2006, you had a Republican who was Representative Mark Foley. He was involved in allegations that he was having gay sex with underage pages there in Congress. And he was a Republican, and they forced him to retire. And so a lot of people were saying, you covered up for him. Well, Rush Limbaugh went to the defense of Dennis Hastert. And then within a few years after Dennis Hastert himself retired, we found out that Dennis Hastert was doing the same thing. But when you go back to 2006, you had a caller say, when did we stop viewing people who've been targeted for blackmail as a perp rather than the victim? And Rush said, well, Denny is not completely innocent here. But he doesn't talk about this other stuff here. He says, well, he lied to the FBI, which brings us back to the beginning of the story. See, come after him. He lied to the FBI. That's what happened to Martha Stewart. That's what they came after General Flynn for, but they don't come after James Clapper for lying under oath, right? But he says, whoever is blackmailing Hastert for whatever it is the actual bad guy here. Yeah, that guy that he raped the multiple people that he raped when he was a high school wrestling coach. They're the bad guys. But then when you take a look at the Dennis Hastert Foley scandal, Rush Limbaugh came to the aid of Republicans as he always does. The Washington Times said, Rush, admittedly conservative editorial page has asked for you to step down and resign, Dennis Hastert. And you've said you're not going to do that, correct? He says, no, we took care of Foley. We found out about it. We asked him to resign. He did resign. And we're building better protections for these page programs. This is a political issue in and of itself. The Republican Party is here to make a better economy, to protect the country against terrorism, and we've worked ever since 9/11 with this, right? So they're trying to suppress conservative turnout, but we're going to make a strong economy. And this is how you go down the drain. When you throw away justice, when you throw away morality, that's where you wind up. Thanks for listening.
Our powerful line of fluoride-free products is the perfect gift for yourself or others who are exploring a healthier, happier lifestyle. With options ranging from toothpaste to oral spray, it's easy to find the perfect option for you. Super Blue Toothpaste is the fan-favorite fluoride-free toothpaste that every InfoWarrior loves. Powered by iodine and nano silver, it's designed to deliver a powerful clean while supporting good oral health and fresh breath. Available in 2 refreshing flavors. Enjoy a minty fresh flavor made with peppermint oil, or try our bubblegum flavor. Super Blue Immune Gargle is the only option for on-the-go immune system support like no other. With the scientifically proven patented ingredient Silver Sol in 3 different sizes, you can take it wherever you go. Support good oral health with our one-of-a-kind Super Blue products. Don't miss out on revolutionizing your morning routine. Head to InfoWarsStore.com and get our line of Super Blue products today.